My cousin is an idiot who likes to set up an honest and straightforward persona. At a banquet, when I told the elders I was pregnant, she covered her mouth and snickered beside me. She loudly said, "Didn't they say your husband has oligospermia? How come it's so soon?" All the relatives looked over here. I was so embarrassed that I wished I could find a hole to crawl into. After the child was born, in front of everyone, she said to my husband, "This doesn't look like you either." Later, when Grandma had cancer, the whole family carefully hid it from her and told her it was just gastritis. But my cousin said to Grandma, "Don't you know you have stomach cancer? The doctor said you should eat more of whatever you want." That night, Grandma's condition took a turn for the worse and she was rushed into the operating room for rescue. My cousin cried and said, "I was just telling the truth. She was already sick. What does it have to do with me?" 01 When did I know that Isabella is an idiot? It was my dad's 50th birthday. In my hometown, there is a custom that when a person turns 50, there should be a big celebration. Taking advantage of the National Day holiday, my dad wanted everyone to have a lively time and held a birthday banquet. My dad is honest and kind-hearted and has always had a good reputation, so many people came. Isabella also came. When she saw me, she affectionately shouted, "Cousin." Uncle and aunt went to a big city to work hard in their early years. Their only daughter, Isabella, also grew up in a big city and seldom comes back. We don't have much interaction. The last time we met was when I got married. She came to attend my wedding. I heard that she plans to take the civil service exam in our hometown and has been staying here recently to review. Seeing me, Isabella exclaimed, "Cousin, why have you aged so much? Marriage is really not a good thing. I heard that you and your husband are going to get a divorce. Is it true or false?" I was stunned. I didn't expect this cousin whom I don't see often to throw a big bombshell at me as soon as we met. Aunt gave her a glare and quickly pulled her to leave. "What nonsense are you talking? The young couple just had a fight. There is no couple in the world who doesn't fight." It seems that Aunt has privately talked about my relationship status. Isabella pursed her lips and didn't say anything. Soon the banquet began. I had a poor appetite and had dry heaves several times. Aunt quickly asked me, "Serafina, aren't you pregnant?" I nodded and said, "I went for a checkup yesterday. It's said to be almost 2 months." Aunt smiled and said, "That's great. Double happiness. The grandson that your dad has been looking forward to for a long time has finally come." But Isabella covered her mouth and snickered beside me, and loudly said, "Didn't they say that your husband has oligospermia? There was nothing for 5 years after marriage. How come there is suddenly one now? Cousin, aren't you having a baby so quickly just to keep your husband and prevent him from divorcing you?" Her voice was originally high and easily attracts people's attention. And it seems that she is deliberately doing this. At the end, her voice gets louder and louder, and almost everyone can hear it. For a moment, there was silence at the banquet. Curious, be a spectator-like, and scrutinizing gazes all looked over here. Like searchlights, they made me have nowhere to hide. I have always been thin-skinned. At this time, I was simply so embarrassed that I wished I could find a hole to crawl into. Originally, it was already a bit embarrassing for such a thing as my husband having oligospermia to be loudly said by others. Moreover, all here are my relatives, and my husband can't save face either. Not to mention, Isabella is still staring at my stomach, and there is a deliberate subtlety in her expression. It's as if I secretly found someone else to have a child through surrogacy just to keep my husband. It's simply absurd. My husband was helping my dad entertain guests. When he heard such words, he immediately came over and said with a smile, "Oligospermia doesn't mean you can't have a child. Cousin, you need to improve your common sense." Husband put his arm around me and said gently, "Of course, this is all thanks to my great hero." In this way, Isabella's rumor was self-defeating. Someone at the banquet whispered, "Why is Alexander's daughter such a person? At someone else's banquet, she says such things. Does she have a grudge against her sister?" Uncle heard this and pretended to be angry at Isabella. "What nonsense are you talking? You are in your 20s. You still speak so thoughtlessly. Uncle then said to me, Serafina, your cousin is just outspoken. Don't blame her. In front of so many people, being scolded by her own father, Isabella pursed her lips and soon her eyes turned red. Aunt quickly hugged her in her arms and said, Isabella didn't say anything wrong. That's how it is. There was nothing for 5 years after marriage. What's wrong with Isabella saying it now? Why can't it be said? Is there a ghost in your heart? I didn't expect Aunt to speak so rudely. It was my dad's birthday banquet. I really didn't want to make a big deal and let people see a joke. So I took a deep breath and tried to keep my tone as calm as possible and said, Aunt, you can eat food casually, but you can't talk nonsense. Aunt gave me a glare. Is this how you talk to elders? You are still a highly educated person. Grandma came out to mediate. Olivia. You are wrong first. Why are you still putting on airs as an elder? This is a banquet held by Serafina's family. If you want to make trouble, go home and make trouble. Aunt finally shut up and muttered, That won't do. I gave a red envelope. I have to eat until I get my money's worth. 02 After this incident, I was very unfriendly towards my uncle's family. Wherever they were, I basically wouldn't show up. But I can't stop them from coming. Not long after, I gave birth to Benny. Relatives from all walks of life came to visit. The small ward was filled with people. Isabella and Aunt also came. Grandma also carried a thermos and walked to the bedside with a smile. I stewed chicken soup. Drink it while it's hot. As soon as Isabella came, she leaned over to the crib and loudly said to my husband, Hey, why doesn't this child look like you? Most of the people here are relatives of my husband. Moreover, there are many lying-in women in this ward. It's full of people with all kinds of familiar and unfamiliar faces. As soon as Isabella said this sentence, there was a deathly silence in the ward. Such a big hat was directly put on my head. But she seemed completely unaware and continued to say astonishing things. Cousin, I heard that you had many boyfriends. Have you cut off cleanly? The more I look at it, the more I think this child is so similar to that ex-boyfriend you brought back last time. She was smiling, with obvious malice on her face. Now I understand. She still holds a grudge about the banquet last time. This time she came here deliberately to disgust me. Before I could speak, Grandma shouted, Isabella! What nonsense are you talking? Shut up if you can't talk properly. Unlike me who grew up with Grandma since childhood, Isabella went to the city soon after she was born. Grandma seldom sees this granddaughter. But people's psychology is very strange. The less they see, the more precious they feel. So Grandma's favorite is this granddaughter. But at this moment, the old lady glared angrily and defended me. Your sister has never brought any other man home. Only your brother-in-law. They grew up together since childhood. Apologize to your sister and brother-in-law quickly. As if she didn't expect to be scolded by her grandma who loves her the most, Isabella stiffened her neck and retorted, What I said is the truth. Look at his eyes, nose, and mouth. Which part is like brother-in-law's? I only felt the incision on my body hurt terribly. My husband was holding the child. Children haven't fully grown yet. It's normal that you can't tell. I think he looks very much like me. He is carved out of the same mold as his father. His eyes, nose, and mouth are all exactly the same. Oh, no. His eyes are like his mother's. Big eyes and double eyelids. Cousin, it's you. If your eyes are not good, you should treat them more. This last sentence was barbed, and was soon annoyed. What do you mean? Are you scolding our Isabella in a roundabout way? You don't think you're great just because you're a doctor and have a high salary. Our Isabella will eat the country's food in the future. You will have to ask her for help in everything you do in the future. I really couldn't stand it anymore. If you have nothing to do, you can leave first. With the two of you here, I can't breathe. Seeing that I had spoken, my husband coldly drove them out one after another. Aunt still refused and muttered, Do you think I want to come? It's only because of our Alexander's face. Something without any upbringing. I will never come again next time and suffer in vain. Now I understand why Isabella has become such a person that everyone hates. It's because of her mother's spoiling. Even if she eats shit, her mother will praise her for eating well. If anyone dares to say something bad about her, her mother will make a scene and go crazy. Finally, there was a crack in my husband's elegant and calm face. He said angrily, "If you don't leave, I'll call the security guard." Only then did the mother and daughter leave. Grandma sighed. This child Isabella has been spoiled by her parents. She is still like a child. She says whatever she wants without considering the occasion at all. Grandma will catch her and make her apologize to you next time. Grandma said this and gave me a big red envelope. Then she smiled and tidied my hair for me. She asked, "What do you want to eat at night?" "Grandma will make it for you." 03 A few more months passed. Benny grew up a little bit, but Grandma fell ill. It was gastric cancer, advanced stage. My husband suggested that we don't let Grandma know about her illness. As long as she has a good attitude and receives conservative treatment to stabilize the condition, there is still great hope for her to live a few more years. So the family unanimously decided not to tell Grandma that this is cancer. We only told her that it is gastritis. My mom said with a smile, "Mom, you have worked hard for most of your life. Now it's your turn to enjoy happiness. We will serve you. Just stay in the hospital. Wait until you are fully recovered before leaving the hospital. Anyway, Serafina's husband is here. With his care, we can rest assured." Grandma agreed repeatedly. In a place where Grandma can't see or hear, Aunt said to me, "Serafina, then you need to be more attentive. Your cousin is busy taking the civil service exam now. Don't disturb her. You, as an elder sister, be more understanding." My mom frowned and said, "Xiaobao is only a little over 100 days old. She is busy day and night. How can she spare time?" Aunt sneered, "Your whole family, can't you serve the mother and son? Is it so difficult to spare one person to take care of the old lady? Those who don't know would think your family gave birth to an emperor. Besides, Serafina was brought up by her grandma. Our Isabella didn't take any advantage at all. Isn't it natural for her to take care of her grandma?" I told my mom to stop talking, "We just need to do our filial piety well. I was brought up by Grandma. She raised me when I was young. I will accompany her when she is old. It's what I should do." Grandma is in good condition and actively cooperates with the treatment. She has a good appetite all day long. The attending doctor said to me with a smile, "After this period is stable, the old lady can be discharged from the hospital." This old lady has a really good attitude. She is happy all day long. I told Grandma this. The old lady was extremely happy. She looked at me and said with distress, "Thanks to you and your mom for taking care of me, an old woman. These days, you are busy running back and forth. You must be exhausted. Look how thin you have become." I leaned in Grandma's arms and said with a smile, "After you are discharged from the hospital, make me delicious food and make me fat again." But things didn't turn out as expected. One day, my mother called me in a panic and said, "Serafina, something terrible has happened. Your grandma has been taken to the emergency room. Come to the hospital quickly." I rushed to the hospital in a hurry. My mother was sitting at the door of the emergency room, with her head hanging down and her back hunched. It was as if an invisible shadow was hovering over her head, making her seem much older all of a sudden. When she saw me, it was as if her emotions found an outlet. She suddenly hugged me and burst into tears. I asked, "Mom, what on earth has happened?" Grandma clearly said yesterday that she wanted to eat the kelp and spare rib soup I made. The spare ribs are ready, but how could Grandma collapse? Moreover, the doctor clearly said that she was in good condition and could be discharged from the hospital next week. At this critical moment, how could something go wrong? Before my mother could speak, my uncle arrived and shouted loudly, "What's going on here?" When I called via video this morning, Mom was still fine. My mother suddenly looked up and roared, "Ask your good daughter." My mother has always had a good temper. Such an abrupt outburst is extremely rare. My uncle was stunned and looked at Isabella beside him. Isabella stuck out her neck and said, "What's it got to do with me? Aunt, don't slander me. It's you who didn't take good care of Grandma and now you're blaming me. My mother stared at her hatefully and couldn't stop crying. She said she wanted to come and see Mom today. I asked her to buy some light breakfast. But she bought spicy and sour noodles. Mom has stomach cancer. It's not just a minor cold. How can she eat such things? I asked her to buy something else. But guess what she said? She shouted loudly, Grandma has stomach cancer. She should eat whatever she wants. Otherwise, she'll never be able to eat it again. My mother broke down and said, after Mom learned about her condition, she didn't eat a single bite all day today. In the evening, she was taken to the emergency room. My uncle's face changed suddenly and he scolded Isabella harshly, you stupid thing. Why did you say those things to your grandma? Don't you know we were all keeping it from her? My uncle made a gesture as if to slap Isabella. Aunt quickly pulled her into her arms. Why are you blaming the child? She just spoke without thinking. Then, Aunt looked at my mother and pushed the responsibility onto my mother. It's still because of your sister. Since she is taking care of Mom, she should buy breakfast. Isabella bought it, and she still finds fault. If she had gone to buy it, none of this would have happened. Isabella also chimed in, yes, it's still because of her laziness. Who told her to order me around? I was so angry that I laughed. Your mother and daughter are nowhere to be seen all day long. It's me and my mother who are busy in the hospital. And now you still think you're in the right? My uncle was also extremely angry and shouted, you two get out of here. Aunt argued with him. Alexander, if you're not happy and your mom dies, don't take it out on us mother and daughter. Besides, your mom will know sooner or later. Whether it's early or late, it's just these few days. My uncle was so angry that he was trembling. Isabella said righteously, yes, what's it got to do with me? Grandma is going to die anyway. Just because I didn't say it, does it mean she won't die? You people are really sick. Instead of blaming heaven or earth or Grandma who is already sick, you're blaming me. I'm easy to bully, right? Her voice was so shrill and jarring. My head throbbed painfully. I couldn't hold back anymore. I stepped forward and suddenly slapped her. Slap. The whole world was silent. Isabella covered her face and started screaming wildly. You dare to hit me? Serafina, you fucking dare to hit me? Even my parents don't dare to lay a finger on me. And you dare to hit me? You're looking for death. Isabella brandished her claws and wanted to push and scratch me. She didn't think she was wrong at all. She deserved it. Aunt rolled up her sleeves and was about to attack me. Serafina, are you crazy? How dare you hit my daughter? My mother stood in front of me, full of vigor. What are you doing? If you dare to touch my daughter, I'll fight you to the death. My uncle grabbed Aunt and said sternly, don't make trouble. Don't you think it's chaotic enough already? Only then did Aunt stop. But her dead fish eyes were still staring at me intently, as if she wished to cut me into pieces. I took a deep breath. I've been tolerating you again and again because Grandma is sick. I don't want to make her sad. But if something happens to Grandma this time, I tell you, neither you nor your daughter will have an easy time. Soon, the door of the operating room was opened. The doctor said, originally, the old lady was in good condition and the cancer cells were also suppressed quite well. But now, the doctor shook his head and sighed. In fact, for terminally ill patients, the most important thing is their mentality, that breath in their heart. Now, that breath is gone and the situation won't be too good. You need to be prepared. My mother covered her mouth and leaned on my shoulder, crying woo 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 again. After this day, Grandma visibly aged. The old lady who was still walking briskly and was happy all day a month ago is now with a bluish-black face and is emaciated and shrunken beyond recognition. Grandma took Isabella's hand and said with difficulty, Grandma doesn't blame you. Isabella withdrew her hand and pouted, saying, Grandma, what are you talking about? This has nothing to do with me originally. I had a knot in my heart, but in front of Grandma, I couldn't vent it no matter what. I could only endure and hold it in, digging my nails firmly into the palm of my hand. Grandma's condition was getting worse and worse. One day, she insisted on leaving the county hospital and returning to the countryside no matter what. She wanted to enter the ancestral grave and be buried with Grandpa. We had to arrange an ambulance to go back immediately. My mother and I accompanied Grandma in the ambulance, and the others followed in cars. Grandma took my hand. Suddenly, she became very energetic and chattered on and on to me. Has our Serafina been working hard these days? It's Grandma who is not good. Look at you. What a state you are in. Grandma sighed, stared at my face, and her eyes were extremely affectionate. I was still thinking that when I get better, I will make delicious food for you and make you gain some weight. It's Grandma who is old and useless and still makes you tired. I shook my head vigorously. Grandma said again, you are always with me. Benny can't see you. He will definitely cry. I choked and said, he is very well behaved and doesn't like to cry. Grandma, get well soon. You promised me that you would watch Benny grow up. Grandma stuffed a thick red envelope into my hand and said feebly, for Benny. I can't see him grow up. You must make him study hard. I didn't want to cry. Once I cried, I couldn't see Grandma's face clearly. I wanted to see her face clearly and remember her appearance well. I desperately wiped away the tears on my face. But the tears seemed to never stop flowing. Grandma raised her hand with difficulty, touched my cheek, and said with a smile, he really looks like you when you were little. Her hand fell. Grandma left. I cried so hard that I could hardly catch my breath. Mom told me not to cry. At home, Benny was waiting for me to feed him. If I was too sad and fell ill, what could I do? I threw myself into Mom's arms and cried so hard that I could hardly catch my breath. The ambulance stopped. When Isabella saw the situation in the car, she pouted and said, is it really that sad? I glared at her hatefully and said, it's all because of you. Obviously, she indirectly caused Grandma's death, but she could still say such cold words. At this moment, I really wanted to strangle her and let her be buried with Grandma. Isabella snorted coldly. Just because I didn't say it, wouldn't she die? Don't think I don't know what you are up to. There are no filial sons in front of a long illness. You have also been looking forward to Grandma's death for a long time. You still act cute in front of Grandma every day. Isn't it just pretending? I still don't know what you said to Grandma just now in the car. Otherwise, Grandma was fine before getting on the ambulance. How come she died as soon as we got off? I really couldn't take it anymore. I wanted to shut her mouth that couldn't close. If the mouth can't close, then let me hit it until it closes. But Isabella was already prepared. She took a step back and shouted, cousin, you can't hit people just because you are guilty. Ed stopped me at once and said, what are you making a fuss about? Your grandma is dead. It was as if a pair of big hands were choking my neck, making me unable to breathe for a moment. I had to accept this fact. My grandma was gone. Uncle came to smooth things over and said, Serafina, your grandma has just passed away. Her body is still warm. Be sensible and don't make a fuss. My mother snorted coldly and said, is it our Serafina making a fuss? It's all because of your daughter. Uncle seemed very helpless and said, sister, you should also say less. Now that things have come to this, what else can we do? Let's hurry up and arrange Mom's funeral. Grandma had many brothers and sisters, and there were also many people who came to attend the funeral. Everyone was wearing mourning clothes and carrying the coffin, about to march grandly towards the ancestral grave. Isabella, who should have been supporting the coffin, was not willing. She was Grandma's only granddaughter. According to local customs, she must support the coffin. But at this moment, she threatened me loudly. Cousin slandered me and always said that Grandma was killed by me. She must apologize to me, in front of Grandma. Otherwise, I won't support this coffin. You can ask someone else. As if they didn't expect her to do such a thing, Uncle was stunned and shouted in a low voice, Isabella, what are you doing? Isabella was unyielding and said, I'm not making a fuss. I'm serious. Serafina owes me. She should pay it back. She looked down at me, put her hands on her chest, as if she was very sure that I would compromise and obediently apologize to her. After all, I am the most filial and love Grandma the most. But she was wrong. This was Grandma's funeral. How dare she make such a fuss? Why should I endure it anymore? I'm not a teenage mutant ninja turtle. I grabbed her arm and made her face Grandma's coffin. I kicked the back of her knee and forced her to kneel down. Then, I pressed her head and hit it hard on the ground. Bang, with a muffled sound, Isabella's head hit the ground. I scolded, "You indirectly caused Grandma's death and still dare to ask me to apologize. Where do you get the nerve? You should apologize to Grandma. Kneel down and say you are wrong." Everyone was so shocked that they couldn't say a word. "Oh, the one who hit is the old lady's granddaughter, right? The one who was hit is the granddaughter? What are they doing? This granddaughter is not a good thing." Not only did she slander her sister for stealing someone, but she also angered her grandma to death. How could the Alexander family give birth to such a thing? What bad luck for 8 lifetimes. By the way, I used to practice Sanda for several years. Isabella's small body is no different from a chick in front of me. Isabella panicked and shouted for help. "Dad, Mom, save me." Aunt said anxiously, "Alexander, go and help quickly." This time, Uncle also felt that Isabella had gone a bit too far. In front of all the relatives, he couldn't hold on to his face and dignity. He could only stop Aunt and said, "Don't worry about it. Look at what you have spoiled the child into." Seeing her parents quarreling and there was no hope, Isabella turned to look at my parents and called their names directly, saying, "Alfred, Adeline, look at what your daughter is doing. How can she treat me like this? I will call the police." My parents didn't bother to pay attention to her at all. Seeing this, Isabella took out the mobile phone in her pocket. I was quick-eyed and quick-handed and snatched it away. In the face of absolute force, she had no ability to resist at all. Aunt stomped her feet in anger and beat Uncle. "Look at what your daughter has been bullied into? You still don't go and help. If you don't help, don't stop me." Uncle couldn't hide his heartache, but still gritted his teeth and said, "She deserves it. At Mom's funeral, she still dares to make trouble. Making so many people laugh at us." Aunt bit Uncle. Uncle let go in pain. Aunt's bloated body rushed towards me. Unfortunately, it was just flabby. With my husband stopping her, it was difficult for her to take another step forward. I said to her viciously, "If you move again, I will teach you a lesson too. Aunt, if you can't teach your child well, I will teach for you." I asked Isabella, "Can you say something good now?" She shouted, "Serafina, I will kill you." It seems that she still doesn't know she is wrong. I grabbed the back of her neck and forced her to continue kowtowing. Thump, thump, thump. Isabella grimaced in pain. I asked, "Do you know you are wrong?" Isabella looked around. "Are you all blind? Don't you see someone is murdering me? Come and help. This is Grandma's funeral. Are you just going to let her make trouble like this?" Only people applauded and said she deserved it. I grabbed the back of her neck and was about to force her to kowtow again. Isabella shouted, "I know I am wrong. Cousin, I am wrong." I said, "Say it to Grandma." Isabella was in a mess of snot and tears, feeling wronged, angry and ashamed at the same time. "Grandma, it's my fault. I shouldn't have talked nonsense. It's me who killed you." I said, "What else? I shouldn't have not gone to the hospital to see you. I am unfilial." And more. Isabella quickly said, "I shouldn't have spread rumors about my cousin. It's my fault." I slapped myself. "Cousin, can't I slap myself? Cousin, are you satisfied now? Please, let me go." I let go. Aunt quickly hugged her daughter and looked left and right. I said sternly, "Support the coffin." Isabella was beaten by me and obediently listened. Aunt looked at the muscles on my arm and didn't dare to say another word. As soon as Grandma was buried in the ancestral grave, the police came. Aunt had a smug look on her face. "Wait and accept your punishment." But she forgot that the police station in the township pays attention to human relationships. After hearing about my grandma's matter and with so many relatives and friends on my side and testifying for me, the police immediately said that this was a family matter and they couldn't handle it. Aunt certainly wouldn't give up and still wanted to make trouble. I said with a smile. Cousin is about to have an interview soon, right? Isabella has been taking the civil service exam since graduation. Originally, she was determined to pass the exam in a big city, but the competition there is really too fierce. After taking the exam for several years and being rejected repeatedly, she had to settle for second best and return to a small county town in her hometown. Their whole family regarded this as the top priority and didn't allow any mistakes. I continued, I don't know if this matter gets bigger and is known by the people there. Is it good or bad for cousin? Isabella pulled Aunt's sleeve. Forget it, Mom. Aunt threatened me. Serafina, you wait for me. You will ask us for help someday. Aunt spoke too soon. I never thought that this matter would end so easily. Does Isabella know she is wrong? She knows nothing. People like her never think they are wrong. If the needle doesn't stick in her own body, she will never feel the pain. I must make her pay the price. I have a breath pent up in my heart. If I don't let it out, I won't feel comfortable. This time, Isabella's civil service exam went very smoothly. Soon, she entered the publicity period. And I sat in the People's Park, the busiest place in the small county town and the place where news spreads the fastest, chatting with the aunties nearby. Nothing else, just talk specifically about Isabella's life story. I haven't been idle these days. I have found out all the bad things she has done since childhood. Things like bullying classmates and spreading yellow rumors about classmates are countless. In a few days, Isabella was reported and couldn't become a civil servant. Uncle's family came to find me to interrogate me. Isabella pointed at my nose and scolded, It must be you. I have only offended you. It must be you who did it. Just offended me? It's more than that. Uncle was very helpless and said, Serafina, your cousin has apologized to you. What else do you want? How can you push people to a dead end? I spread out my hands. Uncle, don't slander people. I didn't do anything. I just saw that my sister passed the interview for the first time and was about to eat the country's meal soon. I was so happy that I talked a little more with people. Since I did it, I never thought of hiding it. Isn't Isabella a big mouth who loves to talk nonsense? Then I will repay her in her own way. But I'm a bit better than her. What I said is all true. I expressed great regret. Oh, cousin is so pitiful. After taking the exam 5 times, she is always just a little short each time. People are almost 30 and still don't have a proper job. Will this life be over like this? Aunt gnashed her teeth. You bitch. I will kill you. I said with a smile, Auntie, if you kill someone, the crime will be great. Cousin will have a mother who is a murderer for the rest of her life. Do you think she can still hold her head high in front of others? I hit Olivia's fatal weakness. Her arrogance immediately subsided by more than half. I continued, Besides, Olivia, can you beat me? Aunt was so angry that she trembled all over. What did you say about me? You uneducated thing. Today, I will teach you a lesson for your parents. My quality depends on people. In front of such an arrogant and vicious person, why should I pretend to respect the old and love the young? Aunt pretended to hit me. I grabbed her wrist and twisted it gently. Aunt's face was distorted and she shouted, Ah, it hurts, it hurts. Let go. Isabella wanted to help her mother but hesitated. Probably thinking of the experience of being forced to kneel and kowtow by me that day, she was frightened and didn't dare to come immediately. I didn't think about really hurting anyone. It would be bad if I was blackmailed later, so I quickly let go. Aunt fell into Uncle's arms. For the first time, she was like Lin Dayu, extremely aggrieved. Alexander, think of a way. Your wife and daughter have been bullied like this. Uncle looked arrogant. Well, since things have come to this, Isabella can't take the civil service exam anymore. I think your job is very good. Find a job with a monthly salary of 20,000 yuan for my Isabella in your company as compensation. If there isn't one, you resign yourself and vacate your position for my Isabella to take over. Oh my God. The shamelessness of this family is simply refreshing my understanding. I knew that my uncle is not a good person either. On the surface, he seems reasonable and honest. In fact, their family is a nest of snakes and rats, worse than pigs and dogs. There can't be two kinds of people sleeping in the same bed. My mother is a person of few words but resolute actions. She directly threw the mop on Uncle's face. Back. 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 If you want to beg, go under the overpass. Don't come to our house. You are not welcome here. Get out of here. On the Uncle's family left in disgrace. Mainly because as soon as they entered the house, my mother called the security guard. Under the gaze of the security guard, they uttered a few harmless harsh words and then ran away. Not long after, Aunt was diagnosed with breast cancer. Their family came to our door again. This time, they came with large and small gifts and smiling faces. Aunt held my hand affectionately. Your husband hasn't come back from work yet. I frowned, pulled out my hand, and wiped it hard with an alcohol wipe. Aunt froze, but still forced out a smile. Last time, it was Auntie who was wrong. Isabella, that child, is indeed spoiled by me. Aunt pulled Isabella. Come on, apologize to your cousin. Isabella reluctantly said sorry. I was impatient. Spit it out if you have something to say. Aunt took a deep breath and still tried her best to maintain a smile. I heard that your husband has many classmates who are all in the tumor hospital in the provincial capital. It's so difficult to get an expert number there. Does he have a way? Or, does he know any more powerful doctors? Introduce one to me. My husband does indeed have many classmates who work there. But I really don't want to help. Auntie's family are all typical ungrateful people. Not only will they not remember our kindness, but if they offend the experts at that time, my husband will also be in trouble. I shook my head. I don't know. We are going to have a meal. You can go. I didn't even bother to be polite. Isabella said angrily, you see no death and will not save. You will be punished. I laughed. I think the retribution for your family comes even faster. Look, you have no job prospects, and the old woman has cancer. What can you do? Can you still live or not? Tsk, so pitiful. My mother pulled my sleeve. Serafina, don't say any more. Her mother won't live long either. Don't create bad karma for such a dying person. Mom, you didn't let them go either. Seeing that we had no intention of helping, Auntie stopped pretending. You cursed me to die. You actually cursed me to die. You two heartless things. I became like this because of you. I will never let you go even if I become a ghost. I rolled my eyes. What kind of ghost are you going to be? Just go straight to hell. I directly drove them and the junk they brought out of the house. Later I heard that Auntie had a double mastectomy and barely saved her life. She became extremely thin. However, not long after, the cancer cells still spread and a new round of treatment had to be started. After Isabella failed the civil service exam, she was completely ruined. She stayed at home all day long and became a keyboard warrior. The savings of half a lifetime were almost spent like this. Uncle was overwhelmed and often drowned his sorrows in alcohol. Later, when a poor woman was looking for her daughter, Isabella, who had finally gone out after a long time, came up and said, your daughter is already dead. Because you didn't look after the stroller well, she was hit and killed by a truck. The woman had an attack on the spot and pushed Isabella onto the road. Isabella was immediately hit and flown by a large truck and became a vegetative state and could never speak again. Truly, those who do many unrighteous deeds will bring destruction upon themselves. And I, holding Benny's little hand, asked him, what does this story tell us? What should people be like? Benny answered in a childish voice, be kind. Control your mouth. Don't talk nonsense. Even a 3-year-old child knows this truth, but Isabella is a malicious idiot. It doesn't matter. Evildoers will be punished by heaven.